The divisional round of the NFL playoffs is here, and as long as football is being played, fantasy football is alive and well. Whether you're in a playoff fantasy league or you're entering some DFS contests, RotoBaller has you covered with consensus half PPR rankings for Saturday and Sunday's games. I'm Jorden Hill, and I'll be breaking down these rankings in just a second, but first, please be sure to leave a like on the video and drop a comment down below with any start-sit dilemmas you're facing. We only have 8 quarterbacks to rank this week, and we'll start off with number 7, CJ Stroud. Stroud has been unbelievable throughout his rookie campaign, and he proved he could deliver in the biggest moments in his first postseason appearance last week. The only reason he slots in this low is due to his matchup against the Ravens in Baltimore. The Ravens surrendered the second fewest fantasy points to quarterbacks this season. Stroud did come through against the Browns, who are also a very stingy defense, but last week's victory came in Houston. This is projected to be the lowest scoring affair of the week, so while Stroud still offers upside, you can't feel quite as good about him in this matchup on the road. Moving up to number 4, we have Jared Goff, who led the Lions to their first playoff victory in over 30 years last Sunday. Goff only had 1 passing touchdown, but he was extremely efficient and threw for 277 yards. Goff will be in Detroit again this week, and he gets a perfect matchup against the Buccaneers. Tampa Bay has one of the best run defenses in the NFL, but it's been vulnerable through the air all season. This game has a really nice projected point total, around 48.5, so I think we can expect Goff to account for a fair share of those points. And coming in at number 2 is Josh Allen. Allen crushed my Steelers' unrealistic hopes last week, totaling 4 touchdowns even in frigid weather conditions. His matchup this week against the Chiefs is definitely a bit more difficult, but there's no question this is one that Allen has been waiting for. The last time these two teams met in the playoffs, we got a classic that ultimately ended in a Chiefs overtime victory. This was at Arrowhead Stadium though, and this year, the Bills have home field advantage. These two defenses are pretty solid, but we should expect plenty of offense anytime Mahomes and Allen face off. With only 8 teams remaining, the running back position is pretty scarce, which is why Gus Edwards comes in at number 7. He offers very little in the passing game, and he only eclipsed 80 rushing yards once this season, but that didn't stop Edwards from falling in the end zone 13 times. He faces a much improved Houston run defense this week, and the Ravens will have newcomer Dalvin Cook active, but Edwards should still lead the charge for Baltimore's ground game. And between him, Cook, and Justice Hill, there's no doubt who will get the opportunities near the goal line. Up at number 3, we have Isaiah Pacheco, who has really established himself as a focal point of Kansas City's offense. Rashee Rice looks like a budding star, and Travis Kelce is still heavily involved, but with the Chiefs' passing attack not operating like it used to, Pacheco is getting a massive workload. And at the top spot is of course Christian McCaffrey. He's by far the safest play on the slate, and should be close to 100% healthy after resting for the past 2 weeks. He'll be an extremely expensive DFS option, but you have to consider him, especially when he has the best matchup of any running back this week. The Packers have allowed the 5th most rushing yards and a good bit of rushing touchdowns, so McCaffrey should be his usual dominant self. We have a trio of teammates ranking inside our top 10 wide receivers this week, as Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, and Jaden Reed all project as solid options against the 49ers. San Francisco has given up a lot of fantasy production to opposing wideouts this season. Who is Jordan Love's number 1 target? No one really knows. Last week it was Doubs, but down the stretch in the regular season it was Reed, and we should expect more run from Christian Watson in his second game back from injury. They're all viable in lineup leagues and in DFS, where they should be priced pretty reasonably. Kicking off the top 5 is Mike Evans. Evans disappointed last week against the Eagles, even with Baker Mayfield having a huge day. The two just barely failed to connect on a couple deep balls, but I'm sure they'll take their shots down the field against the Lions on Sunday. Detroit allowed the 3rd most fantasy points to receivers this season, and just gave up 9 for 181 and 1 to Puka Nacua last week. All the Bucs wideouts look good in this contest, but Evans has the best chance of all of them to give you a huge performance. Making his way back into the top 3 is Stephon Diggs. Diggs cost a lot of people fantasy championships, as he didn't do much of anything from weeks 14 through 17. He tallied 7 receptions for 52 yards last week, and remember, this was in less than ideal weather conditions. His matchup against Kansas City is difficult on paper, but this game means just as much to Diggs as it does to Josh Allen, and you may even recall the iconic photo from a few years ago with Diggs standing on the field watching the Chiefs celebrate an AFC Championship victory. Gabe Davis is still not practicing, so Diggs should be in line for a bunch of targets as the Bills look to get their revenge. We're really scraping the bottom of the barrel at tight end, so let's start with number 11, Brevin Jordan. Jordan only had 1 target and 1 reception last week, but he took it to the house for a 76-yard touchdown. This isn't a great matchup for him, but Houston will once again be without Noah Brown and obviously Tank Dell, so it's possible that Jordan gets a few looks and turns out to be a pretty solid DFS value. Getting into some actually appealing options, we have Sam Laporta at number 4. Laporta is still working through the knee injury he suffered in week 18, but he played on 80% of snaps last week and came down with a touchdown despite minimal volume. Even at less than 100%, Laporta has to be considered in this matchup, with the Buccaneers surrendering the 4th most fantasy points to the tight end position. And finally, at number 3 we have Isaiah Likely. This is subject to change, however, as Mark Andrews has been practicing this week and could be a game-time decision for Saturday's contest. Likely has been really good in Andrews' absence, scoring 5 times over the last 5 weeks of the regular season. Whoever is the tight end 1 for the Ravens this week is in for a treat against the Texans' pass defense that gives up the 6th most fantasy points to tight ends. Hope you guys enjoyed. Please remember to subscribe to RotoBaller for more great fantasy football content through the NFL playoffs that'll help you win big in 2024. Thanks so much for tuning in, and best of luck in the Divisional Round.